The fall of the British base at Singapore to Japan in early 1942 left Australia vulnerable to invasion, and it was clear the Royal Navy couldn't come to our rescue. We needed a new, great and powerful friend. That new friendship was forged 75 years ago this week at the Battle of the Coral Sea, when we turned our eyes to America. After the defeat of Japan and Germany and the start of the Cold War and the conflict in Korea, the new alliance was formalised with the signing of the ANZUS Treaty in 1951.
May all that you stand for and that we stand for be preserved under the providence of God for the happiness of mankind.
But unlike the NATO treaty in Europe, ANZUS didn't give Australia an ironclad security guarantee. The US was bound to treat an invasion in Europe as an attack on America, but an attack on Australia just required consultation. So, without any guarantees, successive Australian governments have tried to get closer to the US. The public mostly didn't mind. We always had a soft spot for the Yanks. When President Lyndon Johnson came to Australia in 1966, he got the kind of welcome usually reserved for royalty or rock stars.
But Australians will go all the way, as Americans will go all the way, not third of the way, not part of the way, not three-fourths the way, but all the way until liberty and freedom have won.
And Australia's Prime Minister Harold Holt was more than happy to go all the way in Vietnam with him. By 1968, Australia and the US were deeply mired in Vietnam, and LBJ needed all the friends he could get.
The President included Mr. Gordon in intimate White House foreign policy and security discussions. The two leaders agreed on continuing cooperation in the maintenance of stability and security in Asia and in the Pacific.
Behind the scenes, John Gorton and Lyndon Johnson had an awkward relationship. The Australian really wanted that security guarantee worked into the ANZUS Treaty. He didn't get it, but Gorton did get the feeling the US was treating Australia more like a colony than an ally, a feeling that continued with President Richard Nixon. By 1972, with the war in Vietnam winding down, change was in the air.
The decision we will make for our country on the 2nd of December is a choice between the past and the future.
The Whitlam government wanted to chart a new, more independent course. The White House gave Gough the cold shoulder early on, and tensions between the leaders fuelled doubts about the future of the alliance.
I believe that the friendship which we offer America now, namely that of a robust middle power, making its own assessments and its own decisions.
By the 1980s, Australia was being seen as more of a partner, albeit a junior one, and one that was allowed to disagree, to a point.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of Australia.
The partnership deepened during the Hawke years.
And I assure you that Australia is and will remain such an ally.
And the alliance drew closer after 9/11, in part because of the relationship between John Howard and George W. Bush.
Prime Minister Howard is a close personal friend of mine, a person whose judgment I count on.
The Australia-US alliance has been strongest in times of war and when the ideologies and personalities of the leaders align. Post-war and post-Cold War, it has at times drifted, and Australian popular support has fallen under more conservative presidents like George W. Bush. Some have argued the relationship should be put on ice with Donald Trump in the White House, so there is plenty at stake right now.